सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहा त्रिनयना माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरा स्मितमुखी मापीनवक्षोरुहा पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकम् रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। सान्निपातिकज्वर सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय विघ्न विनाशिनि रजनी सन्ध्ये मुन्दुभिनादे मानस्तोषे मानसवेगे शङ्खिनी चक्रिणी वज्रिणी गदिनी शूलिनी अपमृत्यु विनाशिनी विश्वेश्वरी द्राविडी केशवदैते पशुपति सहिते धीममर्दिनि गमनी कामिनी शबरी विराटी वाचक्री ॐ द्रं 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 ॐ द्रं गुरु गुरु
श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम नमः सभायै सभासद्भ्यो च नमः Namaste and a warm welcome to all our participants and our speaker for the 19th day of the Global Festival of Yoga. We started this festival on 21st June 2020, that's on the International Day of Yoga, and it's been continuing now and it's nearly 20 days. It's been like a pilgrimage, as one of our participants had mentioned earlier. You walk on a pilgrimage, you meet many sadhus, saints, and listen to them, listen to their wise words, and in the process, you evolve and you grow. And this has been a similar kind of experience. And this evening, we have with us a highly respected teacher of Ramayana, Vedanta, and Yoga, that is Sri Ranganji. Ranganji, Swagatam. Ranganji is a very well-known personality, but I would like to formally introduce him to all our participants this evening and also share about a personal note that I share with him. So Ranganji, Rangan Ramakrishnan, is a spiritual guide, a Vedic scholar brought up in the traditional way in the Vedic culture. He did his Vedic, Vedantic, Sanskrit and Sahitya studies in his early age. He is the founder president of Bebolim, a movement which conducts workshops and various personality development programs based on Vedas and Ramayana. His PhD is in yoga. He is a visiting professor for yoga and Vedanta. He is a professor for yoga at the Department of Yoga and Spirituality at Yes Vyasa Yoga University in Bangalore. Earlier, quite long, he also had done his MBA from Symbiosis University, and his PhD later was on a comparative study of Gurukulam education and modern education. And at a very young age of 13, he had composed 7,000 verses in Sanskrit. He has translated an important philosophical text of Shankara Bhashya of Brahma Sutras at the age of 18, and later he wrote a commentary of Bhagavad Gita, synthesizing the commentaries of all the three acharyas, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and Madhvacharya, the three main philosophical commentators on the Gita. And as a part of Bebolim, he has created two unique Vedic schools, Gurukulams in Bangalore and in Ayodhya. He has written commentary of Brahma Sutra in Sanskrit. Uniqueness of this commentary is that it is based on Rig Veda and Ramayana, while other commentaries are based mainly on Upanishads. He has published papers related to traditional Vedic education in many international journals of yoga. He has done his sadhana to realize the spiritual realities dealt in the Vedas. I think this is something that is really important and that I need to mention. His understanding of the Rig Veda, the Vedas in general, and Rig Veda, the deities, a spontaneous connection that he has with all these forces that you see in the Vedas is what will come to play when you listen to him. And he has also authored many books on Vedas, Ramayana, and yoga, giving their meaning and their practicality for the present age. He travels extensively across the globe. He has many students in Singapore, in Dubai, in US, and many parts of the world. And we need not say anything about India. He keeps on traveling and teaching, and that is Ranganji. And personally, if I have to say, I had the opportunity and privilege to work with him in the same Department of Yoga and Spirituality at Yes Vyasa University, and I was also his student. And many of his students have joined this evening, and each one will agree when I say, when he used to take the classes, especially on Ramayana, you could see that joy radiating on his face as though Rama is standing in front of him. And that joy was so infectious that even we could experience it. And that is Ranganji. And we are going to experience this evening. And I welcome Ranganji. Ranganji Swagatam. And I also would like to welcome all our participants on behalf of Indica Yoga and all partnering organizations. As you know, Indica Yoga is a platform which offers diverse and inclusive forms of yoga which are authentic, immersive, and transformative. And this one session is good enough to show how authenticity, immersion, and transformation can all come together. With this brief introduction, I now request Ranganji to kindly lead us from this point onwards. And I also want to add a note that this session is 1.5 hour sessions. The talk will go for 1 hour, 10 minutes, and then we'll have question answer session. And for all your questions, kindly type in the Q&A box that is there and not on the chat box. Thank you. Over to you, Ranganji.
Dhanyavadaha. Let us start with a prayer. Jnanena akashakalpena dharman yogaganopaman Jnaya bhedena sambuddhaha tam vande dvipadam varam tapaswadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidam varam naradam paripaprache Valmikir Munipungavam Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha. Dear aspirants of yoga, today my topic is Sri Ramayana's Yoga, Yoga of Ramayana. And here I wish to present almost a comparative study of Maharshi Valmiki's Ramayana and Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Those who read these two literary works, for them, it's not actually they would not have missed to find the similarity of Patanjali and Valmiki. In the very beginning of Ramayana, we have this expression tapaswadhyaya niratam. In the beginning of the second pada of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, we have a same kind of expression tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. That is interesting. Let me start with this. Maharshi Valmiki is giving Acharya Lakshanas, the qualities of a great guru, that is Narada. There he talks about tapasya, swadhyaya. Let me explain these terms further. Tapasya, swadhyaya, and munipungavatva. These are the three qualities of sage Narada, who is a guru. Here Maharshi Valmiki is disciple, Shishya. Patanjali, while talking on Kriya Yoga, he says that tapasya, swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana are three components of Kriya Yoga. These are similar expressions. I feel Patanjali is echoing here Maharshi Valmiki. Having that first shloka of Ramayana in mind, he could have started Sadhanapada's first sutra. There is every possibility. The word tapas is used, swadhyaya also is common, and I feel Munipungavatva and Ishvara Pranidhana are identical. I may not be wrong. And tapasya, let us take this word first. Tapasya means austerity, penance. Okay. Let me interpret this word contextually, context of Patanjali. Patanjali is talking about what is the result of tapasya. Kayendriya siddhihi tapasaha. Through tapasya, we get Kayendriya siddhi. What is this Kayendriya siddhi? Accomplishing the wellness in our body and senses. How this happens? Ashuddhikshayat tapasaha. Through the process of purification, one accomplishes wellness in his body and also in his senses. So through the process of purification, that's very important. And this is the result of tapasya, Patanjali says. So what can be this tapasya through which we can get cleansed and our senses and body get established in wellness? I guess that this tapasya includes several practices that run in the name of Hatha Yoga nowadays. The word Hatha Yoga may not be there at the time of Patanjali, but we see various kriyas, bandhas, and mudras, so on and so forth, in the very great yogic texts like Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Hatha Ratnavali. And these kriyas, bandhas, they are here mentioned as tapasya. Any penance is tapasya. Austerity is also tapasya. So these kriyas and bandhas are kind of penance. Atapta tanuhu natadamaha ashnute. Unless we torment our mind and body, we can't enjoy that unmixed bliss, soma. This is what Rigveda says. Soma is nothing but aesthetic sense. Esoteric meaning of soma is aesthetic sense. Yatra anandascha modascha mudah pramuda asate tatra mam amrutam kridhi. This is what Rigveda says. So it's not just talking about a soma extracted from a creeper. That is also there. But esoteric meaning of soma is dharmic rasa, aesthetic sense. It's very much there in Rigveda. The soma rasa extracted from the creeper is a symbol of that aesthetic sense, that rasa. Fine, let me come to the point. So, without tormenting ourselves, we can't get that rasa, says Rigveda. So that tormenting is tapasya. Tapasya is to torment. Tapasantape. That is its root. So in what way we torment? Here in Hatha Yoga Pratipika, we torment. We do different kinds of kriyas, bandhas. All these things are kind of torment. Tormenting oneself. Through this, body gets cleansed. And this is connected with Ayurveda too. Ayurveda also has Vaman, as we have in yoga. Ayurveda also has several techniques that are found in yoga. Yoga also has few techniques that are found in Ayurveda. They are interconnected. Probably that is why Patanjali is common to two, Ayurveda and yoga. So tapasya is this penance. Ramayana also talks about various practices of penance. In Aranyakanda, while rishis come to see Rama in ashrama of Sharabanga, various kinds of tapasya are described by Maharshi Valmiki. Gatrashayyaha ashayyascha Vaikhanasaha balakilyaha samprakshaalaha marichipaha dantolu khalinaschaiva. That's how it goes. I don't want to translate all these things. Just for a sample, I quoted this shloka. There are so many shlokas which talk about various tormenting process, tapasya. This must be the older form of Hatha Yoga, older form of Jainism also. Some Jain practices are like this. By this, we cleanse our body, we cleanse our, not only the external body, external skin, but internal organs, pradhanataya, especially stomach, all these things we cleanse. And through some thailam, through some oil, we cleanse our internal organs and external body in Ayurveda. Through Netramrutam, we cleanse our eye. Through Anutailam, these are all there. All these things are included in tapasya. And what is tapasya in the context of Valmiki? In the context of Valmiki, through the result, Kayendriya Siddhi, I guess tapasya to be this. Okay, this contextual meaning in Patanjali. In Valmiki, the same. On Aranyakanda, in Sharabanga Ashrama, different kinds of practices are given. These are all called as tapasya. These are all the external process to become a rishi. The 10th mandala of Rigveda also talks about it. In Sukta of Keshi, Rishayo Vatarashanaha, that's how it goes. So let me come to the point of Ramayana. Swadhyaya, let me take the second word, Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is Vedic study. Study of Vedic mantras. This is Swadhyaya. Learning Vedic mantras, reciting Vedic mantras, and it requires a rigorous training. It's not a very easy thing. Generally in Gurukulas, we learn around 9 years, a constant practice of avriti. Again and again they recite the mantras and they get mastery of these mantras. They make these mantras by heart. They hold mantra in their heart. To hold mantra in heart, some disciplines are required, and these disciplines can be called as tapasya in the context of Gurukula. If Swadhyaya comes next to tapasya here, tapaswadhyaya, If Swadhyaya comes next to Tapasya, and if Swadhyaya means Vedic learning, then it is explicit that Tapasya in Valmiki's context includes various disciplines to hold the Vedic mantra. Tapasya leads to Swadhyaya. Without Tapasya, Swadhyaya cannot be accomplished. One cannot study Veda without several disciplines. One has to be a teetotaler to learn Vedas. And in Gurukula Vasa, one has to be a vegetarian also. After going from Gurukula, Kshatriyas may take non-veg, that's a different thing. But in Gurukula Vasa, all Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they all remain vegetarians, pure vegetarians. And in Gurukula Vasa, they recite several times this japa of Gayatri Mantra, Sandhyopasana, and then Samidadana. So many rituals from early morning to evening, they always are engaged in these kinds of disciplines so that they get the power to hold the Veda. And it's a very interesting thing in Sanatana Dharma. To my knowledge, no other religion has this practice. What is that? To hold the whole of their scripture in their mind. Veda is not an external book. The whole of Veda that contains 10,587 mantras, Rigveda. Okay. The whole of Rigveda is contained in the heart by Rigveda's disciples. Same with Yajurveda, same with Samaveda. That's a very interesting thing. Several thousands of people are there. They hold the Vedic literature in their heart. How they contain it? How they contain it? How the Veda comes to their heart? It's surely because of the disciplines which they have. Without the disciplines, these Vedas cannot enter into their heart. And discipline is rigorous. These disciplines can be called as tapasya. Vedic study is called as swadhyaya. Tapaswadhyaya niratam. Guru is the one who devotes himself in tapasya and swadhyaya, disciplines and Vedic study. Okay, fine. Then comes a third one, Munipungava. Narada is called as Munipungava. What is Munipungava? The one who is expert in manana. What is manana here? Manana has several meanings. One of the important meanings is this contextual meaning. Manana is a consistent flow of a single thought. Manana, upasana, yoga, all these things go together. Consistent flow of a single thought. In this context, it can be called as mantra. There, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Ishvara Pranidhana, Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana. Already I said, Ishvara Pranidhana of Patanjali and Munipungavatva, Manana of Valmiki, they are identical. That is so I view. I view in this way because how can they be identical? Manana means consistent flow of single thought. Ishvara Pranidhana is surrendering oneself to divine. How they can be one? How are you calling them one? Let us see Patanjali Sutra itself. Patanjali prescribes Ishvara Pranidhana, surrendering to the divine, to calm the mind. Ishvara Pranidhana Dva. Then Patanjali defines Ishvara, that's fine. Next, he also defines Pranidhana. He explains what is Ishvara Pranidhana, what he says. While he is talking about Ishvara Pranidhana, what he tells us, Tad japaha tadartha bhavanam. This is what he says. Tad japaha tasya vachakah pranavaha. Tad japaha tadartha bhavanam. Ishvara's sound symbol is pranava, omkara. And he prescribes the recitation of Omkara here, and he calls this recitation of Omkara as surrendering oneself to divine. So to Patanjali, surrendering oneself to divine is to recite Omkara. This is Manana. This is Manana of Valmiki. Guru's features are told here by Maharshi Valmiki. In Bhagavatam also, Guru's features are told in its 11th book. The same things are told there in different word. Shabde pareche nishnatam brahmani upasamashrayam tasmat gurum prapadyete jigyasu shreya uttamam shabde pareche nishnatam. Shabde nishnatam is nothing but tapasya. Sorry. Shabde nishnatam is swadhyaya. Pare nishnatam is tapasya. Fine. Next to it, brahmani upasamashrayam. There, the author of Bhagavatam brings surrendering to the divine. Brahmani upasamashrayam as a third quality. Same Patanjali talks about tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani. What is this ishvara pranidhana or brahmani upasamashraya? What is this? What is this surrendering to the divine? Patanjali explains that is the recitation of Omkara. If this is ishvara pranidhana of Patanjali, then it is nothing but manana of Maharshi Valmiki. Munipungavam. Munipungavam. These are the three features of Narada, the Guru. And these three are called as Kriya Yoga by Patanjali. The very beginning shloka of Maharshi Valmiki is identical with the first sutra of Sadhanapada in Patanjali. So let us start with this. Next, Maharshi Valmiki submits several questions to Narada, his guru. Among those questions are very clear, direct, and simple and sweet. Short and sweet. Nothing confusing, no verbose. Among these questions, in our context, a very important question is this. Atmavan kaha jitakrodaha. Atmavan kaha. I long to know about a realized soul in the world. 16 qualities are given. Among these 16 qualities, Valmiki asks, who is a realized soul? Atmavan's literal meaning is this: one who has Atman, one who has self. Everybody has self. But it's a Lakshyartha. Suggestive meaning is, Atmavan means Atmavit, a realized soul, realized self. That's a very important question in the context of yoga. As a result of realizing the self, one masters the rage, chitakrodaha. One restrains krodha, rage. Here, rage is upalakshana, is a sample for all other negative instincts like kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. Atmavan kaha jitakrodaha. Maharshi Valmiki asks this. And Narada gives answer. He says Rama is the one who has all 16 qualities which Maharshi Valmiki is talking about. And Narada says not only he has 16 qualities, but he has 64 qualities. And further, Maharshi Narada is going on talking about all 64 qualities. Among those qualities, for the question Atmavan kaha jitakrodaha, who is Atmavan, who is realized soul? For this question, Narada responds. This response goes in this way: Yashasvi jnana sampannaha shuchihi vashyaha samadhiman. This is the answer of Narada. Yashasvi, that's a different thing. Yashasvi means glorious. Rama is glorious. Next comes our topic. Jnana sampannaha. Rama is a man of knowledge. What knowledge? Everything is knowledge. physics, chemistry, botany, zoology. All these things are knowledge only. What kind of knowledge Valmiki, Narada is talking about? He is going to talk about physics knowledge, chemistry knowledge, several things. The mastery, Rama's mastery over sciences. He is going to talk about that. Veda, Vedanga, Tattvajnaha, Dhanurvede, Nishtitaha, Sarva Shastrartha, Tattvajna. Those things are going to come. Here in this context, Jnana Sampannaha, Rama has knowledge. What are the components of knowledge? Next comes the statement, Shuchihi, Vashyaha, Samadhiman. Shuchihi means Rama is pure. Vashyaha means the one who has restrained his senses. Third one, Samadhiman, one who has Samadhi, who is in Samadhi. So these three components, the one who has these three is called as Jnani. One who has these three qualities can, that which has these three is Jnanam. Etat Jnanam iti proktam. Bhagavad Gita talks about some 15 to 20 qualities and says all these things are called as Jnanam. Such a simple thing. Jnanam or knowledge. We may think some mystified thing must be there, some mystery must be there. But Bhagavad Gita talks on human values regarding jnana. If these human values are there within us, as a result of jnana, then he is a jnani. Even if he reads the whole of Prasthanatraya Bhashya, even if he goes through so many theories, if he doesn't have some virtues which get manifested in a jnani, he cannot be called as a jnani. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyaha na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. That is theoretical knowledge. But this knowledge, jnana sampannaha, it includes these three things, shuchihi. Again, in my view, I want to submit this view in a humble way to all of you. I just want to compare this shuchihi, the word shuchihi, in my view, includes Patanjali's Yama, Niyama, Asana, and Pranayama, because these four practices cleanse our body, cleanse our mind, cleanse our thought, cleanse our vitals. So, Shuchihi. Next comes Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyana. These three comes in the second word of Valmiki, Vashyaha, because these three help us to restrain the senses. Vashyaha. Then the eighth limb of Patanjali's yoga, that is Samadhi or Samapatti. That same Samadhi which Patanjali talks about, here Valmiki shows as Samadhiman. Rama is the one who has Samadhi, who is in Samadhi. I'm not going deeper into the subject, what is Samadhi, those things are there. It's not easy to explain it in an hour. But as you all are practitioners of yoga and aspirants of yoga, most of you know what are these 8 limbs. I need not explain. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, up to Samadhi. Patanjali has his own terms, 8 terms, Yama, Niyama, Asana. These terms may not exist at the time of Valmiki. Valmiki predates Patanjali. Might not have existed or might have existed. I don't know. But see the spirit, the concept, the terms might not have existed in Rigveda or Ramayana. Because Ramayana predates almost all texts of 6 darshanas. It's just because in such a huge literature of Valmiki, which runs more than 20,000 verses, we don't have most of the technical terms that are used by the rishis of Shaddarsanas. For example, Ramayana doesn't talk about Trigunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Probably only one line. There is one word, one statement is there, Digastu Rajasam Bhavam. Except this, the whole of literature doesn't deal about Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. It's almost like Upanishad and Vedas. Ramayana predates it. Ramayana predates several terms of Nyaya, Vaiseshika, even Vedanta, later Vedanta. Several terms of Buddhism. Ramayana is extremely ancient in that sense. And we see in Shaddarsanas, in Sutras also, in Bhashyas also, to prescribe non-attachment to the world, detachment to the world. They talk a lot of blemishes, dosha darsana, okay, about the world, about our body. And that is not found in Ramayana. Nowhere in Ramayana we see that world is nonsense, life is waste. These kinds of statements cannot be found. It clearly means Ramayana predates all these notions, these thoughts. Why I am talking this? Yes, to show that Ramayana predates Yoga Sutra. Why this comparative study then, Patanjali and Valmiki? Ramayana may predate Yoga Sutra, but Ramayana has yoga in it very much. And not only that, Ramayana may not have the terms used by Patanjali, like Drashta, Drishimatraha, Pratyayanupasyaha. These terms may not come in Valmiki. But interestingly, the spirit of Patanjali is very much there in Valmiki. That is what I want to say. So, yoga minus several verbose. Sankhya or Vedanta minus several technical terms that can be found in Valmiki. If we decipher Valmiki's Ramayana, we see there a philosophy without many of the terms which we use now. That's very interesting. So, I could see that Ramayana helps us to go to that original, almost original era, where rishis directly saw the original tattvas without terms, without later verbose, without terminologies. And that is why I am interested in seeing the spirit of Patanjali in Ramayana, even seeing the spirit of Badarayana in Ramayana. Okay, so can we see with the help of Valmiki, can we see the spirit of yoga, or spirit of Vedanta, or spirit of Sankhya as it is without terms? That is my passion. That is one of the passions of me. Fine. So, Suchihi, Vashyaha, Samadhima. Patanjali has his own way. 8 limbs yoga he talks about. And I guess Maharshi Valmiki here comprises those 8 limbs in these 3, Suchir, Vashya, Samadhiman. Okay. Now let us go to the next chapter, 2nd chapter of Ramayana. Let us have a glimpse. It's an ocean. But in available time, we'll have a glimpse of the insight of yoga in Ramayana. Let us go to the 2nd chapter. Maharshi Valmiki goes to the bank of river Tamasa and he takes bath. While returning, he sees 2 lovebirds playing. In Sanskrita, kraunchas. these Kraunchas are playing. While Kraunchas are playing, Valmiki is enjoying that. He Krauncha and she Krauncha, they embrace each other and they play. They have love sport. Valmiki enjoys. Why should he enjoy? He could have directly come to his ashrama without seeing all those things mechanically. But he is standing there and enjoying. What is that to enjoy? That is a yoga sadhana. Patanjali says, we know the sutra, Maitri, Karuna, Udita Upekshanam, Sukadukka, Punya Punya Vishayanam, Bhavanataha, Chitta Prasadanam. Sukha. Sukha means joy. On seeing somebody happy, develop happiness in you, Patanjali says. On seeing somebody in misery, develop compassion. On seeing somebody virtuous, enjoy that virtue. On seeing somebody wicked, don't get attached in that. Don't get trapped in that. 4 things can happen in the world: Sukha, Dukkha, Punya and Apunya, for which we have to respond in 4 ways. This is how in this sutra Patanjali speaks. And let us take the sutra for the 2nd chapter of Valmiki. First, Maitri towards Sukha. Enjoy the joy of others. They are enjoying. Krauncha birds. These lovebirds are enjoying, a couple. See, while seeing somebody sad, we may develop compassion. This virtue is there with many persons. Okay. This is called as humanity. This is wonderful. But this is not enough, says Patanjali. You see, if somebody is happy, you also become happy. Develop the tendency. Develop the tendency. You also start to enjoy it. There comes aesthetic sense. There comes kavitva. This is rasa. This is rasa. You are sitting in a train. I was sitting on a train. With me, a woman was traveling. Of course. Some mother was sitting there, and this mother was bidding farewell to her boy who is standing outside this train, bidding farewell. And they are talking each other and they are cajoling each other, boy and mother. That woman who is sitting in front of me, she sees this boy and the mother conversing. Seeing that, she started to enjoy. She was smiling, she was enjoying that. And this mother and boy, they are strangers to me also, to that woman also. She was enjoying. Then after this boy's departure, the train started. I asked that woman, are you a yoga practitioner? Yes, she said. How do you know? Because it's difficult to enjoy others' joys without practicing a sincere yoga. Yoga need not be a terminological yoga. Okay, she may not practice asana, she may not practice pranayama, she may not practice those things. Without knowing what is yoga, one may practice yoga. Yoga is any method to calm the mind. Manah prashamana upayaha yogaha. Calming the mind is yoga. So that woman may have some methods to calm the mind. That's why I asked. Are you practicing yoga every day? Yes, definitely, she said. Yes. That's the reason. She is enjoying that vatsalya, a parental care of a child and child's love to mother, she enjoys. On seeing a child, one may enjoy. One may play with the child. That's a different thing. That's quite natural. But seeing a mother's love to the child and child's love to mother, if somebody is enjoying. Seeing two birds sitting and enjoying, seeing some 2 or 3 humans are happy, on seeing that if somebody becomes happy, most probably he must be a yoga practitioner. Unless mind is calm, quiet, one cannot enjoy others' joys. He may have a regular practice to calm the mind. Here Maharshi Valmiki sees these 2 Kraucha birds. They are enjoying. Valmiki is also happy. Charantam anapayinam dadrasa bhagavan statra Krauchayoho charu niswanam. Then there comes a hunter. He, without knowing all these things, he just shoots a he bird through an arrow. And he bird was shot. He bird falls down, and he bird is throbbing. Tatha tutam dijam drishtva nishadena nipatitam rishehe dharmatmanaha tasye karunyam samapadyate karunyam samapadyate tatha tutam dijam drishtva tam shonite paritangam Veshtamanam mahitale bharyatu nihatam drishtva rurava karunam giram rurava karunam giram. While he bird is throbbing, she bird starts to cry. She creates a pathetic voice, Rurava Karunam Giram. On seeing this she bird, also he bird, Maharshi Valmiki's heart starts to melt. Karunyam Samapadyate. This is the second aspect of Patanjali. First, Maitri towards Sukha. Second, Karuna towards Dukkha. Showering compassion to one who is in misery. This Karunya, slowly, Maharshi Valmiki's heart is melting. And from that melted heart, a verse, a poem is coming. Shokaha Shlokatvam Agataha. Shokaha Shlokatvam Agataha. I'm not going to explain the poem, but here the point is, here every word is powerful before that shloka. Rishehe dharmatmanaha tasye karunyam samapadyate. The word Rishi. What's the meaning of this word Rishi? One who sees. Rishi Darshanat, says Yaska in his text called Nirupta, very old text, older than Mahabharata. In that Niruptam, Maharshi Yaska says Rishi Darshanat. It's etymology to Veda, this text. Etymological explanations of Veda. One who sees is Rishi. One who sees is Rishi. Everybody sees, so everybody is Rishi. No. Seeing into the life of things, says William Wordsworth in his literature prelude. Wordsworth says, seeing into the life of things. That's how he defines a poet. An ideal poet could see into the life of things. He sees life behind the so-called material things. He's not just seeing a plant as a plant. He sees a life behind plant, a creeper. He sees himself behind the creeper because life is like that. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati. Sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam tatona vijigupsate. He doesn't have hatred. From the depth of his heart, love flows to all beings in the world. Mitrasyaham chakshusha sarvani bhutani samikshe. So, that is the qualification of a rishi. Rishehe dharmatmanaha tasya. Rishayo drishta dharmanaha. The same Yaska says. So, it's not the mere darshana, darshana of dharma. That is echoed here in Valmiki also. Yaska may predate Valmiki, I don't know. Whether Yaska came first or Valmiki came first, we don't know. But anyhow, in both the texts it comes. Rishayo drishta dharmanaha in Yaska, here Rishehe dharmatmanaha tasya. Bhavabhuti identifies Yaska and Valmiki here in his Uttar Ramacharita. In Uttar Ramacharita also, the same story comes. There he beautifully connects Yaska's Nirupta with Valmiki here. Rishi has a vision of dharma. Tatsarvam dharma viryena yathavat. Whole Ramayana is seen by Dharma Veera, that is Valmiki. Valmiki calls himself as Dharma Veera. Tataf pashyati dharmatma tatsarvam yogamastitaha. Beautiful. The first shloka came from the depth of heart of Valmiki. First verse of Ramayana. Then seeing that verse, Valmiki could recognize in the same way, let us create all the verses. The same way, let us create all the verses. Idrishaihi karavanyaham. Then what happens? He closes his eyes and he feels that dharma. What is that dharma? Compassion. To Valmiki, dharma means compassion. He sees that this compassion is a vital, important rasa in Ramayana. That's what Anandavardhana says in Dhanyaloka. Karunya rasa pradhana Ramayana is. So, Krishnam Ramayanam kavyam idrisaihi karavanyaham. That's a statement of Valmiki. Based on this verse, the first verse, let me create the whole epic in the same way, in the same mood. Our sweetest songs are of melancholy, says Shelley. So, in that sense, Tataf pashyati dharmatma. The man of dharma, Valmiki, what's it mean? The man of empathy. The man of empathy, Valmiki, closes his eyes and sees. Through yogam astitaha. Tatsarvam yogam astitaha. Through yoga, he could see the whole of epic, whole Ramayana. Not only episodes, the life behind it. William Wordsworth words. Seeing into the life of the things. A life behind the events in Ramayana, life behind the characters in Ramayana. All these things are visualized by Valmiki. In Kishkinda Kanda, in the 4th book of Ramayana, Rama shows in spring season a bird to Lakshmana and says, Pashya Lakshmana Sannadam. See the music of this bird. That's the expression. See the music of this bird. And some scholars, they thought, this is not right. This must come in a different way. How can music of a bird can be seen? So, Shunu Lakshmana Sannadam. They changed the patha. And there is a new recension. Nowadays, in available modern publications of Ramayana, unfortunately, Pashya Lakshmana Sannadam got changed to Srunu Lakshmana Sannadam. Listen to the music of that bird. No, the older version is correct. Prachina Pata is correct. Pashya Lakshmana Sannadam. Oh Lakshmana, see the song of that nightingale. Nightingale's song here is not just listened, but seen, visualized. Heard melodies can be heard. Unheard melodies can be seen. Just quoting another literarian, John Keats. Heard melodies are sweet, unheard melodies are sweeter, he says. Okay. Listen to the song of that bird. No. See. See means you have a vision. You understand the bhava of that bird. While you are listening, you are not just listening. You understand the heart of the bird. You recognize the heart of, get attuned to the heart of that bird. Shunu Lakshmana Sanna, sorry, Pashya Lakshmana Sannadam. So this is this darshana. With this insight, with this darshana, Valmiki sees all the events of Ramayana, not only events, it's not just literal, but the life behind those events, life behind those characters. Fine. Next, Valmiki addresses all of us. Oh listeners, may you, I'm going to now deliver Ramayana to you. May you what? Listen. No. Here the statement comes in this way. Nishamayadhvam Raghuvara Charitam Munipranitam Dasasirasascha Vadam. Nishamayadhvam. Nishamayadhvam is not just listening, but not just listening. See Ramayana. I am going to deliver the story of Ramayana. See that Ramayana. Nishamayadhvam. Then also he says, Pratyakshamiva darshitam. These are all beautiful expressions. So this insight, this intuition which Valmiki is talking about is verily the spirit of yoga. The very word yoga is used here by Maharshi Valmiki. Tatsarvam yogamastitaha. Fine. This is all about the second chapter of Ramayana. Okay. Next one. Let us see something about Karma Yoga in Ramayana. Let us come to Ayodhya Kanda. Of course, Karma Yoga is dealt in Patanjali also, for your information. There is one sutra, Karma Yoga. I see here Onkar. He is my student. And in a question paper, I asked only one question. Well, he was a student. The question runs in this way. What's that? Quote that sutra of Patanjali which talks about Karma Yoga. That was the question. I asked my students, 2 question papers I am going to give to you. One closed book exam. Those who want closed book exam can take that. For them, a formal exam will be conducted. Next, open book exam. I shall ask the question now. I may not give question paper and all. Only one question. Only one question I will be asking, for which there will be one word answer. If you fail to give answer, you will get a 0. If you answer, you will become a hero of this class. I shall give you time for 1 or 2 days. You go anywhere and get the answer for this question. Who want what kind of question paper? I asked. All other students, because they only asked me open book. But they all said, we need only closed book question paper. And this Omkar, he was choosing this open book question paper. Question paper has only one question. What's that? Quote the sutra that deals with Karma Yoga. And he gave nice answer and got 100 marks. Tough question. Karma Asukla Akrishnam Yoginaha. This is a sutra in Kaivalya Pada, 4th Pada. Okay. All others karma, they are bound to do punyas and papas. But yogi's karma is neither a punya nor a papa. This is Karma Yoga. Karma Ashukla Akrishnam Yoginaha. This is that sutra. Why? Because while doing punyas is not getting bound to it. How? He does punya without getting attached to the result of that punya. Point number 1. Point number 2, when he is doing that punya, he doesn't have it's very difficult. Next one. He doesn't have a tendency that he is doing. I am the doer. This doership is ceased to exist. It happens. It happens. You are doing wonderful things, so many dharmic deeds. Dharmic deeds are happening. As a flow, it happens. And if at all I exist here, I am after all an instrument. If I will not be there, some other person will too. It has to happen. With this tendency, a yogi does action. That is why he is free of punyas and papas. His karma is Ashukla and Akrishna. This is Karma Yoga. And let us see the spirit of Karma Yoga in Ramayana, in Ayodhya Kanda. When Dasharatha plans to crown Sri Rama, Rama comes to see his mother, Kausalya, to have his blessings, to have her blessings. At that time, Kausalya was practicing yoga. When Rama is coming to see Kausalya, what does Kausalya do? Pranayamena purusham dhyayamana janardhanam. Kausalya was doing pranayama. Rama prostrates before Mother Kausalya. Kausalya opens her eyes and sees Rama. With clasped hands, Rama says, what he says? Amma, I am going to become king tomorrow. Please bless me. No. What he says? Amba pitra niyuktosmi prajapalana karmani. My mother, my father instructed to be in the service of the people. This is what he says. See the spirit of Karma Yoga. For which what answer Mother Kausalya gives? Kausalya has to tell, my dear Rama, may you become the king of the world. You start to conquer the whole world. She says, Purushe pushkare kshane yeyam ikshaku rajyasrihi putratvam samsarishyati. The kingdom which belongs to the Lord Pundarikaksha, the lotus-eyed Lord, who is that? Narayana. The kingdom which belongs to Narayana, that's how the whole lineage believes. You are getting now the opportunity to serve the people in the kingdom which belongs to the Lord Narayana. May you serve in the best way. What a son and what a mother. This is Karma Yoga. Now I recollect the verse of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, while Krishna is starting to talk about Karma Yoga, he doesn't miss to tell that this Karma Yoga was one in the lineage of Ikshakus. And in due course of time, this Karma Yoga, the science of Karma Yoga, got lost, unfortunately. Later, again, to bring this Karma Yoga to the world, I incarnated. This is what Krishna says in the Gita. You see how this Karma Yoga is very there in the lineage of Ishvara. Probably the word Karma Yoga may not exist in Ramayana. That's a different thing. The spirit of Karma Yoga, the word Karma Yoga may not be there in Rig Veda, but spirit of Karma Yoga is very much there in Rig Veda, in the very second mantra of Rig Veda. In the first sutta of Rig Veda, you see this. Yadanga dasushe tamagne bhadranka rishyasi tavetat satyamangiraha. O Lord, whatever blessing you are offering to me as Punya Phala, I offer that too to you. This is what Rig Veda says. And throughout the literature, we see this Karma Yoga in Rig Veda. Though this term Karma Yoga is not there. Same with Ramayana. And in Ramayana, such a Karma Yogin Rama is. That is why later also, he doesn't get disturbed. Today, the father announced that he is going to crown. Next day, Rama comes to see Dasharatha. Dasharatha faints. Having Dasharatha with her, Kaikeyi says to Rama, you are not supposed to rule, you have to give up everything and go to forest. Rama has come here only to get crowned. With all his paraphernalia, he has come. Well decorated. Chandanena parantapam, he also has got pasted sandal, chandanam. And with all his ornaments, he has come thinking that today is the coronation ceremony. But all of a sudden, there is a twisting point. Here, Mother Kaikeyi says, my dear Rama, you have to get exiled. With a matted hair, wearing tree bark. It's not that you can build a golden bungalow in forest. You will be in woods for all 14 years with a matted hair and wearing tree barks. This is what Kaikeyi says. At that time, luster in the face of Rama never has got diminished. Nachasya mahatim lakshmim rajyanasho pakarshati loka kantasya kantatvad Shitarashme rivachapa. Even the thick darkness of the night, the whole world is filled with darkness, but this darkness doesn't diminish the splendor of the autumnal moon. It is the splendor of autumnal moon which removes the darkness of night. In the same way, Sri Rama's moon-like face is resplendent even in this adversary, even in this disaster. He comes out at that time, thousands of people are waiting for him. Among them, not even a single person could recognize what happened inside, could guess what happened inside. That is how Rama's face was. Here Valmiki rightly uses the word pravivesha. Atmavan veshme matuhu apriyasam shivan. Thrice he uses this word here in this chapter. Atmavan. Atmavan. Because this is a sign of an Atmavan. The whole life got turned to a tragedy here. Still Rama is pleasant. A realized soul will be like this. Atmavan means he did not superimpose upon himself the paraphernalia of royals. Pratishidya Subham Chatram. Umbrella comes, fans come, all these things he just stops. Not with dejection, with the resplendent face, he stops all these things. Means these things need not be superimposed upon me. They are there, and I am that I am. I played a role of a prince, therefore all the prince's role is different and I am different. While I was a prince, while I was a deputy king, these things were there. Now I am not a Yuvaraj, now I am not a deputy king. I know that. That role is going to go to another person. So these guys may not know that, but they should not come again to serve me in this way with this umbrella and all these chamaras. No. It's very clear. This Viveka Khyatihi Aviplava Hanopayaha. That's so Patanjali says. What is this Viveka? Discriminative power. All this paraphernalia is for the role of a deputy king. I am not a deputy king, and I am different, for which all these things are not required. And these are all the components of yoga in Ramayana. And he talks about all these things in Bharata, to Bharata also at the end of Ayodhya Kanta. Sarve kshayantaha nichayaha patanantaha samuchrayaha sanyoga viprayogantaha maranantam cha jeevitam. Those which come always go. That which is always here will remain always. All others except the self are transitory. This is what Rama says to Bharata. Based on this wisdom only, he could, without even a least of complaint, sacrifice. Rama is a man of sacrifice. How it's possible? He knows that I am different, and that is yoga. This is the most important component of yoga. This is jnanam. I am different from all adjuncts. And this also contributes to society. This jnanam contributes to society. That is the karma yoga of Rama. So, in available time, I could deal only with these events here regarding Ramayana and Yoga Sutras, few events as case studies of few sutras of Patanjali. So many things are there. Ramayana is also a ocean. Yoga Sutra is also another ocean. So in available time, we could see this much. And Indic Yoga is doing a very nice, wonderful job in this season of Corona. It's very important to have wellness utsava, and we are having that. May we pray for universal welfare. So with this, I conclude. Dhanyavadaha.
Ranganji, I'll thank you, but before that, I also take the liberty and say that if you want, you could continue for another 10 minutes, and all our participants are really, they're all ears to you now.
Thank you. Okay, fine. So let me continue the same thing. Rama Bharata Sambhashanam. the conversation of Rama and Bharata. Bharata is requesting Rama to come back to Ayodhya. There, Rama is going on talking about his own philosophy. These are also dealt in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra in second pada, Sadhana pada. Parinama tapa, samskara, gunavritti nirodhacha, dukhameva sarvam vivekinaha. Several sutras are there. Now let me come to Valmiki. Natmanaha kamakarosti purushoyam anishwaraha itascha itarataschainam krutantaha parikarshati. Always a human being is not working through his free will. Destiny also has a part, and the free will also has a part. Based on destiny, several things are happening in our life, no doubt in it. So, considering this, one has to calm his mind. If something happens against our free will, yes, if something is happening against our free will, we have to make all efforts to stop it. But even after that, if something is happening irresistibly, then we can't get tensed for that. We have to calm our mind, thinking that this is destiny. And you see, all things are transitory. One may wish to have all these things permanent. We all feel that our relatives should be always there with us. But that also doesn't happen. Yata kashtam cha sameyatam harnave sametya cha vyabheyatam kalam masadya kanchana yevam bharyascha putrascha jnatayascha dhanani cha sametya vyavadhavanti dhruvo hesham vina bhavaha. Throw some woods on a ocean. How long they will be going to exist together? They part. In the same way, in due course of time, all relatives are parting one by one. This is what is happening in the world. Sarve kshayantaha nichayaha. Whatever we earn ends in spending. Patanantaha samuchrayaha. There is a saturation point. Whatever goes up has to come down. Sanyogaha viprayogantaha. Things that are gathered will be parted. Maranantam cha jeevitam. If there is birth, there is also certainly death. Death is always there with us. Sahaiva mrityuhu vrajati. Saha mrityuhu nishidati. It's not that death is going to come after 100th year of our life. While sitting, death is also sitting with us. While walking, death is also walking with us. While we smile, death also smiles. This poor fellow is smiling. That's how death thinks. What's the meaning of this? We have to ask Rama only. Rama says, since death is always with us, we see changes in our body. Gatreshu valayah praptaha, shvetaschaiva shiro ruhaha, jaraya purushaha jirnaha kimhi krutva prabhavayet. Gatreshu valayah praptaha. Gradually, one starts to develop wrinkles on his cheeks, whether he wishes or not. And then what happens? Therefore, he starts to grow beard to hide those wrinkles. But what happens? Shvetaschaiva shiro ruhaha. That hair also turns white. So we can't cheat ourselves. Day or other, we are definitely going to become old. If we will be alive at that time. Sanyogaha viprayoga jaraya purusho jirnaha kimhi krutva prabhavayet. We may be extremely ambitious. I'm going to achieve that. Everything is there, fine. But one may think, oh, I'm growing older. I have to I have to protect my youthfulness. In what way one can protect his youthfulness? Kim hi krutva prabhaviyeti. Anyhow, this jara, this old age is going to come. Okay. Why Rama has such a pessimistic attitude? No, this is not pessimism, this is optimism. Accepting the bitter facts as they are is optimism. Facing boldly, being brave is optimism. We have to recognize all these things because these are facts. These are the realities of life. I think the greatest maturity in the world is to recognize the transitoriness of the world. No philosophy in the world is complete without recognition of transitoriness of the world. It's not pessimism. By recognizing this transitoriness of the world, what happens? One feels an external object is not required to fulfill oneself. Atmanamanutistasva, Rama says, Sukhabhajaha prajasmrtaha. In the same context, Sukhabhajaha prajasmrtaha. Recognizing the transitoriness of the world, one gets contented in oneself, being in his own self, in his own soul. He enjoys. He understands to enjoy his life without, he will be able to enjoy his life without getting trapped into the external materialistic pleasures. As Rama has this wisdom, Rama was able to give up his kingdom at his prime age for that invisible concept called pratigya or truth. He gave up the whole kingdom. He is exiled. Yet he says, my dear Bharata, once I was under a royal umbrella. May you take that royal umbrella. But now I am happier because I am sitting under this greenwood tree. Chayam te dinakarabhav prabhadamanam varshatram bharata karotu murdhni shitam ye tesham ahamapi kanana drumanam chayam tayam atishayinim sukhi srayishye. I am extremely happy to sit, to lie under this greenwood tree. Chayantam atishayinim sukhi sri etesham ahamapi kananadrumanam chayam. I enjoy my life in this forest. How can he tell that? A Chakravarti's son, an emperor's son. How could he tell this? It's because of the power of wisdom. Atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate amritam, says Kenopanishad. Okay. This viryam is derived from one's own self, one's own Atman. What is this viryam? Cutting others, beating others? No. Adventurous yet. What's that? Brave enough to give up all the materialistic pleasures for the sake of universal welfare. The spirit Rama has. It's because this is a spirit of yoga. Again, what is yoga here? I can be in myself. Santoshat anuttama sukhalabha, says Patanjali. There is no need for me to possess materialistic objects. If materialistic objects are around me, that's also fine. I don't have any hatred. That's a different thing. If somebody is coming and holding umbrella to Rama, fanning, well, he was an emperor's son. Those things were there. He could accept all those things because these are all royal duties. If somebody is a president, he has to stay in Rashtrapati Bhavan with all his upachara. So Rama accepts all these things. But when he is exiled, he doesn't bother. He doesn't cry, oh, I lost umbrella, I lost all those things. No, he doesn't cry. Okay, Sukhi Srayishye. He is happy also with that. This self-contentment yoga can give to us. So this wisdom Sri Ramachandra gives to Bharata, and interestingly, Bharata also follows the same wisdom. When he went to Ayodhya, he did not crown himself, but he took care of the kingdom. Having padukas, sandals of Rama, considering them as the rulers of Kosala kingdom, he took care of the whole Kosala kingdom. But from his heart, he eliminated that I. To eliminate that ego, he begs, he requests Rama to offer his sandals. He places those sandals on his head and comes back. He coronates these sandals of Sri Ramachandra. And then what happens? Ramapada upaspursan Nandigrame akarot rajyam. This is the spirit of Karma Yoga. Having Sri Ramacharana as base, having Rama's sandals as his foundation, Nandigrame akarot rajyam Rama agamana kankshaya. He ruled the whole Kosala kingdom in the residence in the hut which he built in a small village called Nandigram. Very pious, very piety, with matted hair and also with tree bark, only having fruits and roots, alamula shanaha nityam jatachirani dharayan, waiting for Rama. But he ruled, he governed the whole kingdom with this pious life. This is yoga. This is yoga. How could he govern the whole kingdom? He did not have ego. I am the ruler, I am ruling. No. He eliminated that. Bhavataha tejasa sarvam kritam dasagunam maya. In Yuddhakanta he says, O Rama, by your grace, by the grace of Paduka, by the grace of sandals, this state has grown like anything. This state has developed like anything. So, this is very important. If we give up the tendency of I, and in the throne of our heart, if we crown Sri Ramapaduka or Sri Ramachandra and feel that Rama is working through me, then all dharmic deeds which we are performing for the universal welfare will be accomplished, and we can see the miracle which we see in Bharata, which we see in Samartha Ramadas, that great Karma Yoga, great leaders, spiritual leaders had that Karma Yoga. Through that Karma Yoga they worked and they accomplished. So let me conclude with the prayer of getting Karma Yoga to us. Karma Ashukla Akrishnam Yoginaha. Ashukla Akrishna Karma of Ramachandra. A karma beyond the fruits. Karma free from its fruits, which is Karma Yoga. May Sri Rama bless us with that spirit of Karma Yoga, which we see in him and Bharata here. Hope that I have justified my topic. Dhanyavadaha.
Dhanyavadaha, Ranganji. I think we could have gone on like this for the entire night or day wherever people are joining. I mean, words fail to express what we have just experienced. It's sheer ecstasy. Only two come to my mind, Jnana Purnam and Rasatmakam. It was filled with knowledge, the way you could just keep together Yoga Sutra and Ramayana in front of you, and just with all your craftsmanship, just take any sutra or any shloka and just see how the beauty of their synchronicity was emerging. I think this was something that we enjoyed, and the way you were narrating, the spontaneity in which the shlokas of Ramayana were flowing out, it was like a river, the mighty Ganga flowing with all its splendor and grace. I mean, this is what we experienced, and all the participants have expressed their gratitude to what they have received. So thank you very much for what you gave us. And we were also transported to those days of Prashanti Kutiram, where we used to sit in your class and just see Rama, visualize Rama in front of us. And many from S. Vyasa family, they also have joined and expressed the same gratitude to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you have also touched something very deep, which is beyond the intellectual, rational mind. So I don't want to take up all the questions, but I'd just like to take up two questions, which I think will help us in extending this session a little longer. Question is from one is from Ramakrishnan ji and other one is from Radhakrishnan ji. So one question is you refer to Rama moves as the exponent of yoga, but there could be other characters also in Ramayana which bring out this connectivity with yoga. Of course, at the end you also refer to Bharata, but you in the synopsis you had mentioned about Hanuman, about Sita. Maybe you just want to share one incidents from their lives also to connecting this to the idea.
Okay. Whom I can take, Hanuman and Sita?
Hanuman.
Okay. Sundarakanda starts with yoga. Whole Sundarakanda is getting resonated with yoga, brimming with yoga. Actually, Sundarakanda is a yoga text and a tantric text. Many tantric hints are there, even though tantric terminologies are not there in Sundarakanda. Kishkinda again ends with yoga. Savegavan Vega Samahitatma. That's so. This is the final shloka of Kishkinda Kanda. Manassamadhaye Mahanubhavaha Jagama Lankam Manasa Manasvi. Sa Vegavan. Vegavan is the quality of speed found in Hanuman. Vega Samahitatma means calming that acceleration. Hanuman has two dimensions. One, calming his own acceleration. Another one, speed, acceleration. It's very interesting. And these two things are brought together. He is not always getting accelerated. Now he has to start his journey to Lanka. At this time, speed is required. But Valmiki describes himself to be calming his mind. And to expand his mind, he does so many things here. Atha Vaidurya Varneshu Shabdvareshu Mahabalaha Dhira Salila Kalpeshu Vichachara Yatha Sukham. He sees Vaidurya colored grass around him and he starts to walk on that, expanding his mind and calms his mind. Why he does all these things? To develop the speed within himself, from himself. The speed which comes from calmness is more capable, more dexterous than the speed that comes from acceleration, stressfulness. Okay, the speed which comes from clarity is more capable. This is what we see with Hanuman. Again, Trayam Ekatra Sanyamaha, bringing Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi together is Sanyama. Dharana is more related to focus. Dhyana is a more defocused state than Dharana. Samadhi is even more expanded state than Dharana and Dhyana. These three together means what? First Dharana, then Dhyana, then Samadhi. No. Simultaneously having these three states. How it's possible? That's possible. Having an expansion in backup, if one focuses, then it becomes Sanyama. It's not an easy thing. If one achieves, if one accomplishes this Sanyama, by these siddhis occur. If one does sanyama on the connection between body and space, one gets a siddhi of akasha gamanam, says Patanjali. Same thing Hanuman practices here in the beginning of Sundarakanda. Rurodha hridaye pranan akasham avalokayan. Akasham avalokayan is expansion. Rurodha hridaye pranan is focus. He brings all his vitals to his heart, and then he focuses on that prana, having backup a space. His wide open, the eyes sees the expanded space, so that this expansion also can come to his mind. With that, the focus of his prana also doesn't get disturbed. When this sanyama happens, he started to float. This is what Valmiki says. So, this is a very important shloka. Even if you see that before doing this sanyama, what are all the things Hanuman is doing? All those things are loosening exercises. First, he stimulates his whole body, starting from the tip of the toe to the top of the head. Samhrityacha, those shlokas are wonderful. Samhrityacha Shirodhara, that's how it goes. Valmiki talks about every limb. Every limb of Hanuman getting stimulated first. And then, Bahu samstambhayamasa, Mahapariga sannibhau, Sasadacha kapih katyam, Charanau sanchukochacha, Samhrityacha bujau Sriman, Tataivacha Shirodharan, Tejas sattum tatha viryam, Avivesasa viryavan, Margam alokayan durat urdam pranihite kshanaha, Rurodha hridaye pranan, Akasham avalokayan. Padbyam dridam avasthanam krutva kapi gunjaraha, Nikunchya karnau Hanumanu, Uppatishyan mahabalaha. Beautiful shlokas. I'm not going to go to the translations of these shlokas, but Valmiki in these shlokas exactly describes the stimulation which Hanuman creates in every limb of his body, and then how Hanuman brings all the vitals in his chest. Then with this, how he defocuses and expands in his mind. Through this sanyama, how he starts to float, how he leaps to the sky. Akashagavana Siddhi of Patanjali comes here. So, this is how Hanuman is a very great yoga master, and this is only a boon, this is only a drop of yoga in Hanuman. Throughout Sundarakanda, you can see this yoga everywhere in Hanuman.
So perhaps we need to plan for a course on Ramayana with each character. Okay, I'll just take up one last question, which was about Sita. So I didn't. When you gave me the choice, I preferred Hanuman then because Sita was on the way.
Okay.
So the next question was about how do you explain? You mentioned about Rama being Atmavan, and despite the situation he had to face when he had to go on exile, he was able to maintain that joy. But later when he loses Sita, you can see that sorrow in him. So how do you explain that part?
Okay. Sorrow comes to yogi also. Even Krishna cries on seeing Maya Vasudeva getting killed by Saubha. That's how Mahabharata says. Yogi is not a stone. Yogi also has sorrow, because sorrow again comes to yogi in the form of compassion. Yes, Maitri, Karuna. Rama may not suffer for his own suffering. Oh, I lost my kingdom, I lost my kingdom. No. Rama suffers while he got separated from Sita. There also, I lost my wife, I lost. No. How Sita will be now? Sita will be suffering without me. That is suffering of Rama. This is the Karuna aspect of Rama, and this Karuna is extremely important to a yogi. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yonaraha. Then with that Krishna doesn't stop. Sukham va yadiva dukkam. What's the meaning of that? Sukham va yadiva dukkam sayogi paramo mataha. My own interpretation. Seeing his own self everywhere and having empathy. Karuna towards Dukkha, Maitri towards Sukha, is here expressed by Lord Krishna as Sukham Vayadi Va Dukkham Sayogi Paramamataha. So it doesn't mean that a yogi doesn't have Sukha or Dukkha. Rama suffers feeling for Sita, and there also, even while he is suffering, he did not give up yoga. This is what Hanuman says. Dushkaram kritavan Ramaha hino yadanaya prabhu dharayati atmano deham na shokena avasidati. Shoka is there to her Rama, but avasada is not there. What is shoka and what is avasada? Shoka is misery. It comes because he is compassionate, but through the shoka one gets bound, and he also falls without getting up. He becomes hopeless in his life. That element is not there in Rama. Na dukkhena avasidati. Dukkha is real. Dukkha is there to Rama, but this dukkha did not make him to fall forever. He comes up only through the power of his yoga. He maintains a core heart in peace always, even while he is in separation of Sita. That is why he can establish the same peace also in his all adjuncts later. And interestingly, the same thing is expressed by Hanuman for Sita also. Natyartam Shubhyate Devi Gangeva Jaladagame. You are talking about mighty Ganga's flow. Here, Sita Devi is compared with that. Natyartam Shubhyate Devi Gangeva Jaladagame. Sita was in sorrow, but she was not very much drowned in misery, and she held her life for further vibrant optimism. So these are all the yogic elements we see with Rama and Sita. Though they had suffering, it did not touch their core. That's an important thing.
Thank you, Ranganji, for this beautiful explanation. I'm reminded of two things. One, there is a statement which people, wise people say that pain could be involuntary. There could be very little control about pain that comes in everyone's life, but suffering is optional.
Okay.
As you said, the dukkha and the avasada, like Rama had that pain, but he was not suffering in that manner.
Yeah.
And also this ability to discriminate what the suffering that one comes because of one's own self-centered nature, and the compassion and empathy that comes for others when others are suffering. I think this is something very, very important. When you say that he was not going through the pain, it doesn't mean necessarily that he was not compassionate for others, but he could actually feel that sorrow. And in fact, there's one statement in Vyasa Bhashya which says that the sensitivity of a yogi is something very much like the eye, so that it's so sensitive, and but that is for others, for the pain of the others, for the suffering of the others. That's the kinds of sensitivity that they develop, and I think that's what you brought about so beautifully in the life of Rama. Thank you very much. Yeah, all our participants are filled with joy, the joy with which you were narrating, that was highly infectious, contagious. So we all carry that at the moment, and thank you very much for what you have offered. Pranams. I also would like to request two things. One, how can people follow your work, can connect with your pravachans, because you continue giving your lessons online and you also travel whenever it is possible, but how can they follow your work? That is one thing. And second, one message that you want to share with all our participants, but that I'll get back to you after the announcements for tomorrow. Kotiji, can I request you to please show the events of tomorrow? So tomorrow we have yet another day of an immersive experience. We start in the morning with Jairamanji, who is the director of research in Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, who will be speaking on the essence of yoga, life and teachings of Yogin Sadashiva Brahmendra. In today's world, we use the word yogi so casually that a 200-hour program can allow us to use the title as yogi so and so. But just to understand what that word means, what it could imply, you need to look into the lives of yogis and just see the way they led their life, what it was. And one such example is being chosen tomorrow from the life of Sadashiva Brahmendra, who was quite a recent yogi, maybe just about a couple of 100 years before he was there. And you can see when you note his life, you can really understand and appreciate what the term or where the term yogi can apply. So that will be the session tomorrow, looking into the higher dimensions of yoga through the life of Sadashiva Brahmendra from Jairamanji. In the noon, we have a Yoga Nidra practice session led by Shri Aarti Padmanabhanji, who is the founder of Padma Yoga Academy based in Bangalore. She will be taking us through a actual experience of Nidra, Yoga Nidra and sound meditation. And in the evening, again, another beautiful immersion in Atha, the Yoga of Now, practical wisdom from a timeless text. So Nitya Jagannathanji, who is the director of, again, from KYM, Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram Institute of Yoga Studies, she will be looking into Yoga Sutra text and bring out the essential components which makes so much of sense to us even today at this moment. That is the practical wisdom from a timeless text. That will be the topic for tomorrow. And I would also like to mention about Saturday evening's program. We will be led into a bhakti session, a bhakti immersion by Krishna Das. Krishna Das is an internationally well-known name in the field of music and especially in the field of kirtans. He will be live with us live, leading us through the bhajans and kirtans on Saturday evening. And we have one more week still to continue. And each day we have such stalwarts coming and presenting in front of us. So I request all of you to join us in all these sessions. And I would also like to inform all our participants that all these events that are being broadcasted here are also recorded and will be available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel. So if you want to revisit all these sessions, especially if you would want to go back to Ranganji's session again and again, so it will be there on Indica Yoga YouTube channel. All the sessions that have happened so far, we have had about nearly 55 to 60 speakers who have come from 21st June onwards. So all these videos are available for free. So please make use of the offerings that all these great teachers have given us. So with this, I come back to Ranganji and request for two things. How can people follow your work, and what is your message for all our participants today?
Okay. We have a website, weboling.org, and then if somebody wants to contact us, webolimclasses@gmail.com. That also can be contacted. That's the thing.
Can you repeat it once again, Ranganji?
Please come to our Gurukulas also. Shrutirama Gurukulam. Those who want to come to Ayodhya, they also are welcome.
So Shrutiram Gurukulam is in Bangalore and Sita Lakshmi.
Sorry?
Shrutiram Gurukulam is in Bangalore.
It's not getting connected here properly.
Okay. No, you want to say a little more about the Gurukulams? For our viewers, I'm just mentioning Shrutiram Gurukulam is in Bangalore. Yes, Ranganji.
Yeah.
Just a quick word about the Gurukulam.
Is nearby. Sorry?
No, just a quick word about the Gurukulams.
Gurukulam has the components of Vedic education, yoga, Ramayana, Sanskritam, and NIOS based school syllabus. These are all the various components of our Gurukulam. And around 45 children are studying. Few more children are going to join with us. This is about Gurukulam.
And a message for the evening.
Yataha abhyudaya nisreyasa siddhissa dharmaha. Dharma is that through which abhyudaya, social upliftment, and nisreyasa, spiritual well-being, can be accomplished. Therefore, may we work for that. May we work for abhyudaya and nisreyasa. May we pray the Lord to stay in the internal peace and manifest the action through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranganji. And I also would like to place our record gratitude to all our participants. We had about nearly 450, 500 participants joining us on Zoom, on YouTube Live, and on Facebook Live from different parts of the world. And I thank each one of them for joining us and really giving us this wonderful Rasayana, the Rasa experience of Ramayana and yoga. Thank each one of you. And namaste from Indica Yoga.
Namaste.